Now back to one of our lead stories. We've managed to reconnect that line with Professor Lesiba Teffo. Professor, thank you so much for joining us on News at Prime this evening. We're saying that it was a quieter, less dramatic Sona without the EFF. Now, without any distractions, was the president able to be clear enough and on the ball enough for you?
Well, clear enough and bold enough in terms of repeating what everybody knew and almost everybody expected. Was there anything you said? Certainly not. Except those who were not alive to the previous Sonas and to the previous speeches made by him and his organization. To that extent, I wouldn't say he has failed the people. He has succeeded in living up to the expectation that he would repeat already what is already known.
Now, Prof, for those of us who were watching the State of the Nation address on television, when those cameras, whenever they did pan into the gallery and we saw the reactions from particularly the oppositions, you could see that, you know, it was being received as a stand-up comedy show or just complete shock. You know, more plans, as you're mentioning, more promises that have been made before, again around Eskom, again around Transnet and strengthening the NPA. Now, if you listen to previous Sonas, and if that's anything to go by, just last year's one, by hiring the new electricity minister, we would think the president would be giving us a different update this year.
Yeah. Well, look, we are prisoners of hope, but you must be realistically hopeful. It was Ramaphosa who was in charge of the energy war room under Jacob Zuma. It was under his leadership and stewardship then that things began to go wrong, all right? And that you can have a magic wand and say, Dr. Ramaphosa can step in and change things. It doesn't work like that in the real world. They know exactly what went wrong. They were quiet, including himself, strategically so. When the rot and the corruption took place at Eskom, that brought us where we are. It's not by accident, by the way, that we don't have electricity. And we don't need a rocket scientist to tell us why we are where we are. The evidence is there in many reports, including the Zondo Commission, that tells us exactly why we were here. And he was part of the so-called 9 wasted years. And he was presiding over that committee that was made sure that there is sustainability of provision of electricity and other, at least, deliverables.
Prof, you know, like many members of society, also the opposition didn't hold back once again, as usual, but this time more critical than ever before, and many accusing this year's Sona of sounding like an ANC manifesto, saying the president should have rather saved this for the Moses Mabhida Stadium, saying they didn't feel the ANC had taken ownership of the mess they've created. Now, when you speak of the 9 wasted years as well, the president spent quite a significant amount of time talking about state capture as if, one, it's a thing of the past, it doesn't exist anymore, or two, that it wasn't created by that very same party.
Yeah, well, look, he lives in another world, unfortunately, because if you listen to him speak, you definitely would have thought he fell from Mars or Jupiter, one of those celestial stars. He didn't sound like one who's on the ground, we're having a feel of the existential experience of the people on the ground. Maybe we are taking it for granted that he's one of us, whereas he comes from the outer space. I mean, when he said he went to the hospital and people are happy and celebrating to be there, then I knew how low and how low indeed he has stooped. And I'm not surprised. And I'm disappointed in him a lot. Because I heard him even yesterday say, if white people were to take over the government, apartheid would come back. If the EFF or the APC or the AWB were to take over, at least the pensions and the grants and the NAFSAs would be taken away from the people. Surely he could do better. He's learned and educated to a level where he should be able to appreciate. If I have to lose power but serve my people, so be it. but to serve his political party at the expense of the people. That will be his Achilles heel until he goes down to his grave. He could have done better, and he could still do better.
Now, Prof, what did you make of the tale of Dintswalo? You know, there's been mixed reactions since the State of the Nation address and this tale of Dintswalo. Many saying that Dintswalo is actually unemployed right now. Dintswalo is actually probably living in a dilapidated RDP house, unable to get funding for NSFAS, and the list just keeps going on and on and on. However, what the president painted were some of the successes to say that, no, because of no-fee schools, because of the nutritional meals that are also being given, and because of the NSFAS funding system as well, we've got many graduates out there who are living a somewhat decent life. But wouldn't you say that the story of Dintswalo is perhaps the exception to the rule?
Look, the metaphor of Dintswalo could have resonated a lot with the people in the first 15 years of the new dispensation. But it is here and now. And I can hear somebody at the back of my mind by the name of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, the former president of Tanzania, saying to me and them that people don't eat slogans, people eat pap and fleece. We are talking about the here and now. And by here and now, I don't mean 2024. I say, let's say in the past five years, would the people of Buputatswana, Mahikeng, Nyanga and Langa say life is far much better today than it was then? Yes, I give them credit. All right? Under Jacob Zuma, we have seen anti-road proposals being rolled out and saved many lives. I grant them that. I indeed am a proud South African that they could take a bold step to address the issue of Palestine in the manner they did, especially when you take into account how other people helped us to be where we are. I also take pride in the fact that they did the best they could in terms of massification of education. But that is also not enough, because many people are accessing education in order to know what.
Prof, before I let you go, just quickly, what do you make, while you're taking pride in certain achievements that have been made, the president did take note that there's been a slight decrease in youth unemployment. I mean, it's a figure of like just under 1.4%. Is that even worth celebrating at this point? It's such a slight figure.
Yeah, well, how unfortunate. I heard the lady by the name of Ramaphosa, I think is the minister in the presidency, saying there are more people employed today. There are more job opportunities now than there were 3 years ago. And I said, really? In which world does she live? But it tells you she was reading from the same script as the president is reading. You have got young medical doctors unemployed. You have got so many graduates unemployed. I'm concerned about, but I'm also more concerned about the people we churn out of the TVET colleges, out of the universities, with no hope of employment or even unemployable despite their certificates, because they are worth nothing in terms of content and in terms of skill.
Jeez, yeah. And that's the sad reality. Thank you so much for your time and your insights this evening.